All right, I guess we're back at it again for another year. You kind of heard the premise at the beginning, so I guess let's get right to it. The Titans, I was workshopping ideas in my head other than quarterback here, and I really just didn't like any of them. I don't think Cam Ward, from what I've seen of him at Miami and Washington State for that matter, didn't watch his incarnate Ward tape, I fear. But I think he can be the first overall pick and can be a very serviceable quarterback. But he's not one of these super excited, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Um, First round quarterbacks, your Caleb's, your Burrows, your Trevors. And, two of those guys you can question if they're going to work out right now. I think Burrow definitely has. Um, but you never know. I like a lot about Cam Ward's game from what I've watched of him when I watched Miami last year, so I'm comfortable putting him here. The Browns, I think you can look three ways here. You can look quarterback if you are really, really displeased with what they have, which you should be, but the right guy's got to be there. And then you can do Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Um, I think you can't really go wrong either way. Um, but I prefer Carter in this situation, just pairing a stud elite pass rusher next to Miles Garrett. Like the Browns have good defensive linemen, but that is just completely disgusting. That is a game wrecking, ruining strength you can give the Browns to where they might just win a bunch of games very low scoring because of that defense. Even with crappy quarterback play, if Joe Flacco runs it back, I if you give them that defensive line, I could see them making the playoffs. Um, Giants, I I don't think Sanders is him. I fear. So we'll stick with Russ this year. Russ and Jameis. See how many wins they can get you. Um, if they really really stink, Giants are gonna clean house. They're gonna get a new quarterback, GM, and head coach all in the same offseason. But I don't want to put my eggs in the Shedeur Sanders basket because then you're just forcing the new coach and GM to have Shedeur Sanders. Again, you know the premise of the video. This might be making no sense. I'm going to go Travis Hunter. They could really use corner, another weapon on this offense next to Malik Neighbors. I think is really, really exciting if you're a Giants fan. Patriots, I know they need offensive line help, but I just can't help but laugh and be giddy thinking about Ashton Genty. I love him so much. I cannot believe I had the self-control to not mock him to the Browns or the Giants. I'm just gonna have to finally pull the trigger on him. I just love him so much. Dude, I mean, I was even thinking about him going to the Titans, but I think the quarterback situation's so dire there. But just love him to death. Can't justify him falling any further for me personally. Jacksonville, I think you can go a bunch of ways here. I'm just gonna take a receiver I really like and put him next to Brian Thomas Jr. And for me, I'm just going to go Emeka Ibuka. I think he probably, for me, is my favorite receiver in this draft currently. Just how consistent he was at Ohio State. And I just think he complements Brian Thomas very well. And then the Raiders immediately after. I think you need to get more weapons on this team for Geno to succeed. Not really ready to take a running back again here with Genty gone. So I'm going to go Tet McMillan. Really, really good receiver from Arizona. Made Noah Fafita look very good at times, and even though he looked very, very bad last year. But Tet looked good through the entire season, so he's going to go here. The Jets up next. I think the Jets finally end the no offensive tackle run. They could use some help, so we're going to go Will Campbell right here. And then the Panthers, I think you really just need to get Bryce Young more help, because this might be his last year if he ends up really stinking it up again. The Panthers, I think you're hoping go around 7-8 wins, or you're getting very concerned about Bryce. But I want to get him another weapon, make sure he has no excuses not to do well. So we're going to do Luther Burden here, put him on that Panthers team with Bryce. I think that works out really well. The Saints need just help everywhere, and they're just in absolute hell currently. I think this is where I'd start considering Shedeur because of how dire the consequence is, but I'm not fully guaranteed that he is better than Spencer Rattler, which is insane, but I'm not sure currently, just from what I've seen of Shedeur, if he could be better immediately in the NFL. So I'm just going to go best player available, which to me is Mason Graham, and he will just be a nice future piece when the Saints kind of blow this thing up and start over here. To the best they can, they've really kind of messed things up. For the Bears, I don't really feel like they really need to upgrade weapons that much in a way, and they really did a good job of retooling their offensive line in the offseason. So I just want to make this defense better because it also was not spectacular, although a lot of the blame was placed on the offense last year. I just think Malachi Starks is such a special player, such a good defender, and so I am comfortable putting him here to the Bears just to be an ultra playmaker that can just change the game. I think he's the best defensive player that can do that currently, and I think he would find a spot right away to play on the Bears, no problem. San Fran, that defense is ravaged. They're in a tough spot right now. Hopefully they just get healthy on offense. But I think we need to upgrade the defense. Even when healthy, I'm not sure the talent's there, so I want to do Will Johnson at corner right there. Dallas, next to CD, the Dallas receivers just really, really stink. And so I'm careful, Jesus. I think I want to bring in a receiver, and my next best one happens to be a receiver from the University of Texas, so it would immediately be a very popular player on the team. I'm going to go Matthew Golden. I think that would be a good selection for Dallas, who's in a weird spot right now, to say the least. Miami, I think a big need for Miami is their interior defensive line. It's the interior offensive line and defensive line. I think they have to get one of those, or one of each of those in this draft, but I'm not liking the value for interior offensive line right now. So on the defensive line, I want to go Kenneth Grant here. I think he was really excellent at Michigan. Even next to Mason Graham, I think he stood out enough for me to think he's warranted at pick 13 here, at least in my brain state right now. The Colts, I guess let's give Richardson more time. Let's give him one more year, I suppose. I'm going to give him the best weapon I have here in Tyler Warren and just say, dude, you got to figure it out this year. Because I really, really liked him, and he's been very disappointing so far. The Falcons, I've kind of the same philosophy as the Bears here. I don't love the value for receiver or like center right now. Linebacker is actually or edge and linebacker is kind of where we're looking. I just want the best defensive playmaker I can think of, and to me that's Jahad Campbell. I think he can just be a player that just whether they just find a way onto the field wherever they can. I think Jahad Campbell, no matter what, will be one of the best 11 defensive players on the Falcons out of the box. And I just think he makes a lot of sense there at 15. Cardinals, I think they need a corner. I feel like they've needed a corner forever, but I think they still need one. I'm going to go Jahdae Barron out of Texas right now. Good DB. I think this is about the right spot for him. Cincinnati, they need pass rush so incredibly badly, whether it's interior or on the edge. I think my favorite defender here, the surest thing to me, I think Walter Nolan has the biggest upside, but I just really like what Mike Green can do as well. And I think edge is kind of a more premium spot. The Bengals' interior defensive line certainly needs to be upgraded as well. But next to Trey Hendrickson, it's just so barren. It's Myles Murphy, who hasn't been good his first 2 seasons, but we're really hoping he breaks out in the third. Or what, you have like a Cam Sample maybe. It's not great currently on that other side. So I think Mike Green should be the pick here. And then Seattle, I think they could really improve their defensive line as well. And I think Walter Nolan has the upside to really elevate a very interesting Seahawks team. Super different this year, but I think could still make some noise despite, what seems like very lateral moves. Geno for Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp for DK Metcalf. Just the reshuffling is a bit strange, but I think they could still be a very talented, playoff caliber team, especially with this addition. The Buccaneers, I think they could use some edge help, definitely on the defensive line. I like James Pierce out of Tennessee here. Very, very impactful player for Tennessee. Made a lot of plays there. Denver, I think I want to just upgrade the offense, get a very good playmaker for Bo Nix, something very, very dynamic. And I think that can be Omarion Hampton. I know Broncos fans might feel a kind of way because of Javonte Williams being out of North Carolina, very similar situation. But I think it's a completely different situation. I think Omarion should be able to transform this Broncos offense and give it a completely different level. Just what you can do with him in the offense versus the running backs currently on roster. So I'm going to go Hampton here. The Steelers, they kind of have needs. You could argue running back. They could upgrade the offensive line. And Armand Membu definitely could be a kind of guy there. They could upgrade the secondary. But I'm not going into the season with just Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I think they might have Skylar Thompson at the time of this recording, but I wouldn't even fully trust him to make it to the draft at this point. He'll probably make it to spring training, but he's not really going to be a quarterback on the team. So they need a quarterback somewhere. You could get one in the second, third, fourth round. You can wait. There are definitely guys you could plug in when Rudolph isn't good because he won't be. But I'm just going to take the best chance at it now. And I think the best chance is Shedeur. I think Jalen Milroe maybe adds a different level of upside that could really, really excite you. But I think Shedeur is just the better quarterback and the more sure thing. If you put Shedeur in the Bama offense, he would do differently than Jalen Milroe, but I don't think the results would, completely fall off. So I think I'll take him here to Pittsburgh. They just need a quarterback so incredibly badly. Chargers, I just want to upgrade the offense with another weapon. It's staring me right in the face. I'm Jim Harbaugh. I'm just going to do it. Give Loveland to Herbert. See those guys connect with Loveland and McConkey, and you add Najee Harris, which I'm not sure you're super pumped about, but maybe you are. I just think this Chargers offense is becoming so much more dynamic with a now stacked offensive line as well. The Packers, I think they could use help on the defensive line. Rashawn Gary and not many great other options, in my opinion, for that pass rush. So I'm going to go Donovan here from Boston College. I cannot try that right now. We can unpack that name later. But he's going to go to the Packers. The Vikings, I have determined that I think their biggest need just feels like safety. I think that is a place that they could really get better right away. And I really like Kevin Winston out of Penn State. He was very good on that defense. I think he is rising in this draft. His ADP, I do not think matches where he is actually going to go in this draft. And so I'm going to put him at 24. I don't think this would upset Vikings fans. I think this would work out well for them. Texans need offensive line oh so dearly, so this is where Ahmad Membu goes. He immediately starts and plugs in on the Texans offensive line. But oh man, a stinky offensive line last year, and then you get rid of Laramie Tunsil. Just very interesting to me. Rams, I just want to take a good playmaker for the defense. I don't really hate where the offensive line is at, to be honest. And I really think the weapons are pretty solid too, with Devontae and Puka, and Tutu Atwell's pretty good. I don't hate Tyler Higbee either. So I'm just going to go a really good defensive playmaker in Jalen Walker. I think the Rams definitely could upgrade at linebacker, and Jalen Walker could step in here and be a pretty good piece. The Ravens, to me, I don't know why I have this association with them in my head. Probably because it's true, that they are just really, really good at developing pass rushers that come in a bit raw and then they just turn into absolute studs by year 3 or 4. And I just really, really like the potential upside Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M can have. You're drafting him hoping you can mold him into an absolute superstar. And I think the Ravens are a team that thinks they can do that. Lions, I think, realize that they could be deeper at pass rush, especially when they lost Aiden Hutchinson last year, so that we can continue to upgrade there. And I want to go Michael Williams out of Georgia here. Rarely can go wrong with drafting Georgia defensive players, it seems like. And I think Michael, would start on the other side of Hutchinson potentially, but definitely would get in the rotation immediately as a first-round pick. I don't know what to do with Washington here. They're like weirdly super, super close, which just feels wrong. But I mean, like, they could have made the Super Bowl last year. If the Eagles, there's a world the Eagles lose that game to the Rams, and then who knows what happens in the NFC Championship. They're very, very close. I feel like, to me, because I like Brian Robinson and Eckler still, I think you could be looking at Travion Henderson here. I'm going to do something silly funny just because, fuck you, this is my mock draft. I'm just going to take Harold Fannin, and I'm just going to see, I know this dude is a very flawed prospect. I just would love to see Jaden Daniels throwing to him. And, maybe he's too stiff, or his blocking is just not good enough. But I just want to see that happen selfishly. And if Commanders fans hate that, that is perfectly fine. But I think it would be that's just like a crazy snipe. I feel like Jaden Daniels and Fannin would work so well. Like, maybe seeing that in, the late second round would feel a lot better, but I just want to do it here. The Bills, I kind of hate their safety situation too. And I think there's one more obviously good safety they can take in this draft, and I think they can fill other needs later. But I think Xavier Watts is going to be very good. He was really, really important to that Notre Dame defense that was so good last year. Completely shutting down Georgia. without their quarterback, granted, but they did that still, and then really locking in for Penn State. And even in the Ohio State game, they didn't let it get completely out of hand. They were in it at the end because of some stops. So I think Xavier Watts was a giant part of that. I think he can come in and maybe take either of the starting safety spots after a bit of time in the system. I think that would be a really good upgrade, potentially, for the Bills. I hate mock drafting with the Chiefs. I feel like there's always just like a sick player. Like, why do they need to go to the Chiefs? And like Josh Simmons is just still sitting here. Whoa. He's still sitting here. I think he could definitely play. I think he'll start at left tackle, to be honest with you, just right away. And then you can mess around with whoever else at left guard. But I just think Simmons is just take him if you're the Chiefs, man, if he's there. I think the Eagles could use some pass rush help. And I'm just going to give a shout out to my man, JT Tuimoloau. I know people aren't super the highest on him. And I can see your point. But I raise you that in some of the biggest moments, he was so incredibly dominant in certain games at Ohio State. And I think that Philly is a place where JT can kind of flourish. And I don't think JT would work on every single team, especially using him in the wrong way. But I just think that would work really well in Philly. And I'm not in love with any of those other edge rushers. But, if there's another guy that you really liked, you can just put him in there, insert that guy as your edge. But here we go, taking one more look. This probably looks insane. It probably is insane. Harold Fannin is crazy there. Kevin Winston potentially way too high. I just like him a lot. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, and I have him in my mock draft. This is going to be a disaster. I don't know why I did this. This is chill. This might be early for Golden. Dallas is just so screwed, man. Will Johnson? Yeah. This might be weird. This might be a strange fit for the Bears, but I just feel like Malachi's so good. I don't think many Bears fans would say they do this, but I think it would work out for them. The Graham pick, too, is one where Saints fans would be like, well, we don't really need that, but then he's like a 12-year starter and made multiple Pro Bowls, maybe an All-Pro, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't trade this guy for anything. So I think, and Graham and Starks are those kinds of players. Jahad Campbell, too, to an extent. Is this incredibly too early for a Mecca? Probably. I just really, really like him. I think he could be him and Thomas could totally both be 1,000-yard receivers. Just like give that to Trevor. I think he could cook, man. I think Emeka would be so good in that. And Genty to New England. Diggs is there now. They have to upgrade the offensive line later, but how my board fell, they should be in a good spot there. And Carter and Ward, yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know. Logically, all this makes sense to me. There's probably some more, insane things going on here. This rambling part at the end is probably going to get cut out, but I don't know. Maybe that's part of the novelty. Well, I think that's it from me. I'm going to toss it back to editing Andrew and real life Andrew now for the end of this video now.